Well, now something is coming on too strong, and I just can't seem to get along. I always try to write a song, but sometimes the words ain't coming out right. Just my niece has left tonight. But as long as I've got a pipe, let's go.
I'm sorry, I'm enjoying our theme music. And this is the first time we've ever heard it. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to another exciting episode of You Can't Brew That on Television. We are your hosts. I am the Reverend Ryan Bonham.
And I'm Kyle, Rescue Me LaPointe.
And I'm Ryan, regular name Faulkner.
And we are here as we always are to help you bridge the gap between Beer Snob and Frat Boy. Guys, we have a really, really cool show in store for you tonight. We've got a lot of cool stuff, a lot of different things going on. Faulkner has brought us a really cool beer from down under. It's from where the koalas are, right?
The Kiwis.
Right.
From the Kiwis.
Like our good friend Matt Westlake has a guy that he brews with, Andrew Pat.
Yeah, that guy's from New Zealand.
He's
right?
from New Zealand, I believe.
And he's always telling us about how great New Zealand is.
Right.
And he was there when they filmed Lord of the Rings. I don't know if he's ever told you that.
Look at all the rocks.
Yeah.
That's funny because he's from Australia.
What else are we talking about tonight, guys?
We're also going to have our quick hitter news segment.
Oh.
That's turned into a really cool segment.
What is that called now? I think Faulkner came up with a pretty...
News sips?
News sips.
Sips of news, quick sips of news.
Easy come, easy go.
We're going to work on this a little bit, but we do like the idea of sipping our news rather than guzzling it down. We're going to talk a little bit about the semantics of entering beers, because there is a category where wording is very important. Colin and I judged that this past weekend, and we had some issues. We had some great beers that we couldn't push just because of the way they worded their entry. So we're going to talk about that a little bit.
We'll describe what pushing beers means.
We'll cover all of that. So without any further ado...
Also, Faulkner will tell us why there is a spoon in that glass right there.
Yes, that's right.
Yes,
there's a spoon in this glass, and we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. But I want to try this beer first. Faulkner, tell us a little bit about this beer. What kind of flavors it has, where you found it.
I found this, when I saw it, I immediately thought both of you had, this is commonplace right here, but it's called Moa. It's brewed in a brewery in New Zealand.
Can you say that again?
I don't believe that's how you
Moa.
pronounce it. It's M-O-A. Rich, can you see if there's a...
That's right. This is Howard Dean's favorite beer.
That's pronounced...
We might hear from Howard Dean again a little bit later. Well, just as soon as it takes Rich to cue it up, so we had to go just find that on YouTube somewhere.
So this particular beer is called, which caught my eye, it's called Breakfast.
Which is one of my favorite beer meals of the day.
Of course.
I'm glad to enjoy my breakfast beer.
If you don't drink this beer in the morning, you're going to be tired throughout the day.
That you're probably going to be drinking it in the afternoon. And
just smelling this right off the bat, I mean, I've smelled citrusy beers. This smells more like a citrus juice, almost. I mean, this is they've got to have actual added citrus in this.
It's pretty neat. I mean, it's got that smell.
There's a sour behind it, like a
it's almost like a tart grape.
Kind. Yeah, like a tart grape.
So I mean, it smells pretty neat. It's got a hop in there that I've never used before called Full Nelson hop, something like that, Nelson hops.
Nice rounded off finish, not too sweet, not too dry. Just kind of like an effervescent carbonation. Really, this is a nice little beer, man.
Bubblegummy.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely got that flavor. This is weird. It's neat. It's definitely not something I've ever brewed before.
Yeah,
this Bono could go in specialty.
This could go in specialty, actually.
Mm-hmm. It's got a whole lot of flavor profile to it.
It's almost like it feels like drinking a wheat beer.
Right.
But I don't really detect any wheat in there. I don't know about...
It's so overpowered by the citrus and the tart.
Yeah, I mean, it's crystal clear.
Almost like a lager.
The majority of the flavor that I get in this seems to be yeast-driven and amongst the fruit. Once you get the fruit and you get through it to the malt and the character of the beer, it tastes that bubble gum of the yeast and... I mean, it's good. It's got some of that wheat character, some of the malt character.
Okay.
I like it. I mean, this is definitely not my six-pack of the week, but for what it is, it's very clean, very tasty, very interesting. Yeah, I think Captain's Brew out there would probably be killing for a glass of this right now. The guy doesn't know how to brew a beer and not put fruit in it.
To make a beer like this... With this much citrus in it and make it enjoyable, I think is a tough task, and they did a good job with it.
Very much so.
So our buddy Howard Dean has been tasting it. Howard, what do you think about this so far? Loves it. Really, really big fan.
You can even say he's ranting and or raving about it.
I think he's doing a little bit of both. Oh, wow.
So I think,
Somebody shut that guy up.
I talked to Howard Dean about this the other day, and he had mentioned that he's going to take it to Texas and take it to Ohio and take it to Washington, D.C.
What was he going to do after that?
And New York, and we're going to South Dakota, and Oregon, and Washington.
Loves this beer, guy.
Loves it.
And then we're going to Washington, D.C.
Then what?
Nice. That explains it.
You gotta let us know how President Obama thinks about it at the White House.
Guys, Captain wants us to go a little bit easy on the fruit bashing, and I'm with him. We should probably lay off.
No, I don't mind fruit beers. In fact, Bono and I,
I thought he was referring to Howard Dean.
Oh.
Yeah, that's actually a good. Are you referring to the fruit in the beer or Howard Dean?
I think he was referring to the bomb that I lobbed across for Sean Cabot there.
Gotcha. All right.
About his always dropping fruits in his beers.
All right, let's leave poor Howie alone for a few minutes, and let's move on to some news.
I'll take some more.
I'll take some more. Yeah. Let's move on to some news segments because we are going to bring back our 30-second news.
Which I'll be surprised if we get 30 seconds on any one of these news clips. But that's our goal.
That is our goal.
Is to not talk about it in length, to shut up and do 30 seconds to a minute and a half per clip.
Employees at a Florida healthcare company are allowed to drink on the company's tab on company time thanks to a perk known as Beer Cart Fridays.
Is that Allstate?
That is not Allstate. that is Advanced Medical in somewhere in Port Orange, Florida. If I'm not mistaken, Port Orange is up by Jacksonville. They do things a little bit differently up there anyway. So guys, how cool is this? What they say is that it's a really good really good reward for the employees, and it gives them something to look forward to, and it's something that they just want to work towards.
I think this is one of those deals that's really cool, it's really fun, it's really hip, and it'll probably help them for about a year, and then it'll become expected. And then everybody will start taking it a little bit over the top, and then it'll be Whiskey Fridays, and then it'll be slobbering hangover at noon Fridays. But maybe I'm
somebody is going to take it too far. Trust me, it's all going to get taken away.
But at least they know some doctors.
I think back in the '80s, I used to crew jets, F-16s, and if you can believe it or not, in that culture, they would let people drink 2 beers in lunch. That's like.
That's like 24 ounces. Did they monitor the size, or could you get tall boys?
That's like giving a degenerate gambler $1,000 in
Mr.
Vegas.
40 hands.
I think that the Miami Hurricanes football team experimented with crack pipe Thursdays, and that did not go so well.
Well, you did Florida with
car sale Fridays,
steroid Sundays.
All right, on to the next quick hitter because I think that 30 seconds is up.
Let's talk about Chilsner.
Yeah.
Chilsner is a new gadget that chills beer from the inside out. This is from a company that's been making something similar for a long time for wine that's called Corksicle. And apparently it's just a little device that you drop into your beer, and it just keeps it cold. I think it will actually chill a warm beer, and it also allows you to drink while you're chilling.
Well, how does that compromise the integrity of the product by opening it and then putting this thing in there, or is it self...
I think that's a really good call. If you're drinking for flavor the way we do, I think that there could be some serious issues with this. But I mean, if you just have a Bud Light, if you're just drinking like a Miller Lite or something like that,
there's no difference
you
between
you just want it cold.
There's no difference between that and a bar that has an outdoor facility that they don't actually have coolers for their beer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They run them through chillers. They run them through plates on the way to the taps. So they're starting with warm beer. They're giving you cold beer. It's still good. No, I think quality-wise, that's probably fine.
That's probably an idea that'll take off, and after it gets semi-popular, they'll probably be able to refine a little bit more, maybe.
Right? I mean, yeah. The question to me is, how many beers does it last, and those kind of.
How often do you have to cool it?
Now, because there's something that I actually thought about for a while was, could you come up with a one beer system for like a chiller? Basically, you've got the jockey boxes, which have a coil running through a bunch of ice, and then on the other side, it comes out cold beer. On one side, it comes in warm beer. I was wondering, can you do that with a really thin diameter of copper tubing or something, run it through a very small cooler, and send it out so you just, literally can just put a beer on there, we can have pierce through and go, okay, let's see what happens. Let's see if it takes it all the way down there.
I don't see why not.
I think this is a lot more simple than the mechanical application that I was trying to figure out.
Put a piece of tape over a balloon and you can insert something in there, right, without it popping.
Wow.
Right?
All right, let's move on
Jesus.
to the Hops Bar.
Screw me.
Hops Bar in Asheville. Guys, this is a really cool concept. Every time we go to the Blue Bonnet, I just rave and rave and rave about the brew club that filters its beer through hops. His beer goes through a big filter full of hops on its way from the keg to your can, and there is
they walk around with it's a wheelchair that they have set up.
Is it?
To walk around with that. Yeah, and that is actually the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And you'll be interested to know their two best brewers are the ones that are going to be starting up a new brewery up in Richard's neck of the woods in Justin, Texas, called Rabbit Hole Brewing.
That is very interesting.
We're
going to have to score some interviews with them. But until then, we're also going to have to take a trip to Asheville, North Carolina, where a beer company is actually starting to serve shots of hops with each beer. You can actually get a little infuser device and the hop flavor of your choice, and you can infuse hops directly into your beer as you're drinking it.
Wow, and it looks like your options are, just kind of bitter, citrusy, and cat piss.
Yeah, they've definitely got the resiny. I'm really intrigued by the Chinook. I love some Chinook hops. And the idea of being able to infuse Chinooks directly into a beer as I'm drinking. I mean, I just think it's fantastic.
That's like marinating your meat in meat.
That's exactly right.
I think the Simcoe, maybe instead of that, they should just let wild cats roam in the beer. Right where they're dispensing the beer. Then you don't have to worry about the cat piss. It can come naturally instead of having it from a hop. So, by the way, those folks out there who don't know, there are a few varieties of hops that it's very difficult to describe how they taste, but it tastes and smells like cat urine. I don't know what cat urine smells like or tastes like. But
of course you don't cut.
I've heard it described that way, and I can see...
Whoa.
Good catch.
Open that one.
I can see why they would say that. Okay, so Bono is breaking out our next segment here, which... why are we doing this segment again?
You don't want to keep talking about cat piss? I thought that was really appetizing.
No, I was just feeling time there, man.
I thought it was cat piss and ingestion.
I know everybody's really excited about it.
All right, everybody, St. Patrick's Day is coming up.
Yes, it is, Bono.
Yes, it is, Ryan.
You like that segue?
That was a heck of a segue.
Yeah, just handed it right off to you.
And all right, looks like it is that already showing? Oh, okay. Around this time every year, we usually try to drink something Irish. And this year we're going to take a little bit different of a twist on it. We're going to mix Guinness with other drinks.
Which is a pretty cool concept, that because of the different style of beer that they are and because of the different makeups, they can actually coexist in the same bottle without mixing. If you do it right.
If you do it right, that's correct. And Guinness is actually, contrary to what you would think just by looking at it, Guinness is a pretty light beer.
Yes.
So it tends to float on top. Look at how perfectly that came out.
That's nice.
It tends to float on top of whatever drink you want to put it on top of. So I've actually got this really cool glass, this Guinness and glass, and you see that the and is on bottom.
And this is really neat. Bono's actually pairing this with a cider this time instead of a beer. There is another Irish beer in the fridge that I brought in there. I don't know if you saw, but I brought some Newcastle Brown Ale. I didn't know if you wanted to mix the Newcastle.
Somehow I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to do that, and we'll discuss that in here. I'm actually glad that you did, because we will discuss that.
All right, so that's my tease for Bono.
So what you do is you get a serving spoon, and when you pour the Guinness on top of the other beer, you want to set the spoon rounded side up down into the other beer so that it dissipates the energy and allows the Guinness to stay on top.
Really, Bono?
Now, you can buy a serving spoon from Guinness. I think it costs like $15 or something. Or you can just do what I did and just make one yourself. It's not terribly difficult. All it requires is a spoon and a pair of vice grips and some muscle.
So I see you're following the dissipation of the fluid up as the liquid level rises.
That is correct. And Kyle, why don't you show the way that...
Rich, you want to go to the webcam?
So this is kind of a dark cider, so I'm not 100% sure. Oh yeah, that is perfect right there.
My fingers, yeah.
So
even the colorblind guy can see that there's two different colors there. That's gorgeous.
And so a properly poured Guinness that's mixed with something else will have that nice, like, perfect line in it.
I have tried this countless 2 or 3 times, and I have never been able to make it work. So I'm very stoked to have a professional in our house.
Well,
that must have been.
As Kyle says that, I dump beer all over his floor.
That the beer hit the floor.
Mr. Brinkley is going to be very ecstatic about it.
The dogs of Dog Leg Brewery are very excited to have beer on the floor.
So Bono first tried to change this spoon by using his mind, I believe, right?
It turns out that my mind is pretty weak.
Pretty weak. So that one didn't work. So then he tried his fingers, even weaker.
Even weaker. He might as well just use his mind.
So I think
he ended up getting a hobo to do it.
Yeah, so I did get some practice doing this. I was fortunate enough to
That's beautiful, dude.
Work at Irish Fest up at Fair Park
Sláinte.
last weekend. Sláinte. There you go, producer man. I poured you a Guinness. So what we're drinking here is cider and Guinness. And of course, we're going to drink the Guinness first, then the cider is going to be resting on the bottom. This particular cider I got is Crispin, which regular watchers of the show will remember we tasted and absolutely loved. This is one of the flavors we didn't get that time. This is the Crispin Artisanal Reserve with Irish Stout yeast and organic molasses.
Which is something very interesting, that you did the Irish Stout yeast. I think that's cool. You do know in the fridge I have an aged version of that. That's gorgeous.
I did not know that.
That is textbook.
I have a 2-year-old bottle of that now in the fridge, so I'd be curious to try it next to a current day bottle to see what the flavor difference is at this point.
All right, and Kyle actually, and because he knows how I feel about this sort of thing, Kyle brought an English beer,
right,
to mix with the Guinness. And Kyle, why do I feel so strongly about that?
Because
the English enslaved and mistreated the Irish for centuries. And
you didn't let me answer.
And just ask them; they'll tell you about it.
No, actually, the reason why is because Bono would have liked and preferred the old names of Ireland and England to exist, but now it is Great Britain and Ireland instead of Britain and Lesser Ireland.
Can't we all just get along? Isn't that what U2 says?
We could, but it's not likely. Oh, yeah.
U2 talks about love all the time.
U2 does talk about a lot of things.
Oh, cool.
All right.
We still have our script.
Sweet.
We're going to enjoy our Guinness mixes, and we're going to talk a little bit about...
I don't hate this, by the way.
You've never had one?
Well, not cider with my Guinness.
Well, you haven't gotten to the cider yet, dude.
Well, if you take a big enough drink, you get a little bit of cider.
Yours is settling away.
Well, you've got the actual glass. I should have broken out some more of those.
There's a little bit more gray.
The stout glasses.
Yeah,
stout glasses would have fit better.
Yeah, mine's like a perfect line, isn't it?
Yours is like North Korea and South Korea.
Mine's pretty good too, though.
For topical humor.
That one's going pretty good.
Yeah. Well.
So which one's got the nukes and which one doesn't?
Obviously the darker one.
Okay.
So Kyle and I were fortunate enough to judge Blue Bonnet again last weekend. It's something we do every year. We talk about it a lot. Something we absolutely love. And we judged a flight of specialty beers.
We did. You get towards the end, and sometimes...
Tell us a little bit about what specialty beer means.
Yes, Kyle.
Specialty beer is any beer that does not fit into a style guideline. So it is basically any beer that can't be described as something else. There are 3 or 4 other catch-all categories, like Belgian specialty, like... fruit beer, spice herb vegetable, those beers, it's the same type of category. If it fits in one of those, if the beer we were having earlier, the Moi, was just a cherry beer. If it was just a cherry beer, you would put it in the fruit beers.
Now,
but it's not. There's more to it.
Before you go further, let me ask this. Does it by being in that category mean it's a lesser beer automatically?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, it does not take anything away. There is a lot of times that you will drink a beer that you understand that somebody just messed something up, or they just were trying something silly, and
definitely happens.
And so you'll get some different beers in there that are just out of this, out of the spectrum of flavorful. You're like, why would you even mix that stuff? Then there's some people who are trying to come up with some really unique ideas that you just can't fit into another category.
So it's like the flea market of beers.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's like a swap meet. I think that's a really good way to
The
describe
Trader's
it.
Village of beers.
It's third Monday trade days at the brewery.
So after the 2 engineers figured out that our flight sheets didn't match our bottle counts, we've got several different things. When you go to flight beers and you do a double blind tasting at a judging, there's a lot of work that goes into you, as the judge, having no clue who the hell's beer that is. There's a lot of work that goes into that. Occasionally something messes up. That one flight got messed up. The bottles were shuffled around, so instead of 3 boxes being the 3 flights that they were supposed to be, they were just in order. So they were just, all the beers were just numerical order. Bono and I had 22 beers, 8 of which were for our flight, which needed 18 beers. So we had 10 more beers somewhere else that we had to go locate.
You don't have to be a mathematician to know that that's pretty messed up.
But you do have to be a mathematician to...
Captain's Brew's got a really good question,
Yeah.
actually. I really like this question. Is this a tougher category to compete in?
I would say the toughest.
I would tend to agree with that, and I don't think that the difficulty in competing in this particular category lies in making a great beer. I think you can make a great beer and enter into this category and just fall flat on your face. And that is because there are so many different judges doing this with so many different styles. The group that Kyle and I got, and the reason that we bring this up tonight, we're going to talk about in a little bit, comes down to semantics. It's how you enter your specialty beer. And the way Kyle and I read it and judged it might not be the same way Rich and Ryan would read it and judge it, or you, Sean, would read it and judge it. And so you have no idea who's going to be judging this category. We always say that brewing a winning beer requires skill and luck, and I think that there's a lot more luck involved in that specialty category.
Like I've said about winning a Stein at Blue Bonnet, I've said it several times, but a good beer will not necessarily win a Stein, but you will not win a Stein without a good beer.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's just basically what happens. There are so many good beers, you may lose because there are so many other good beers. And that you just can't always win. Getting into the second round in a category like that is incredibly difficult. We judged some beers. It was very interesting. Bono and I have a very open mind when it comes to the specialty beers.
And I'll tell you what, I love judging them. A lot of people avoid the specialty category. I jumped at the chance. Like, he was flipping through them, and he kind of specialty, and I was like, give us that. Like, I love doing specialty. I think it's a lot of fun.
And meanwhile, we had the counterparts on our table who, is an older guy who's done a lot of judging in his career, but I don't think he's done much specialty judging. And he had a new judge with him.
It takes some flexibility to be able to properly judge a specialty flight, I think.
I don't think I've bitterly, angrily argued with somebody that was involved in my judging experience as much as I have in that one, to just get the guy off a dead center to understand that in a specialty category, sometimes they don't give you enough information to judge their beer.
And sometimes they give you too much.
And both of those things are good and bad. If you have too little information and your beer is excellent, the beer speaks for itself. If you have too much information and your beer doesn't match all of that information, then you lose points. It's a calling your shot thing. It's basically like horse. The harder your shot, the harder it is for somebody else to beat you. But you have to make your shot first.
So let's drill into that concept right now. Because we got a beer, a phenomenal beer, and the brewer identified his ingredients, his special ingredients, as chocolate, marshmallow, and graham cracker. Faulkner, what does that sound like to you?
S'mores?
S'mores.
How can I have s'mores something I
And Kyle, what did that beer taste like?
That beer tasted like chocolate and marshmallow. Oh, am I forgetting something else? That's right, because it didn't have any graham cracker.
But it tasted like s'mores, didn't it?
It did. Tasted like a s'more.
And this is where the topic of semantics comes in, because this was a great beer. And had he or she listed the beer as a s'more beer, I don't know about you, but I'm giving it probably low 40s, high 30s.
It was 5 points higher, and we scored it fairly well. It was scored in the mid-30s.
It was still a mid-30s beer.
Even where it was at. Good beer, if somebody's out there and they know who that is, I'm sorry, we're telling you what your beer did already.
There were a number of s'more beers.
There actually were.
So I feel okay.
We had 2 in the same flight, and they were 2 different beers.
Yeah.
Neither of them called them s'more beers.
No.
But the other one did a better job with the graham cracker. Wasn't as good of a flavor. It's pretty weird like that.
So this is the issue of semantics that we're getting in. If you are entering a specialty category and you call 3 ingredients, the judges need to be able to taste all 3 ingredients. Now, we tasted 2 of them, and we said, you know what? The third one's probably there. But that doesn't get you to the next round.
Right.
Knowing that but if they had called that a s'more beer, again, just simple semantics. It's just changing a couple words, giving you a little bit less information.
Right.
You're not looking for graham cracker, marshmallow, and chocolate. You're looking for s'mores. And we tasted s'mores.
When you're eating a s'more, is the big flavor that you get in there the graham cracker? No, it's usually the chocolate and the melted marshmallow, right? I mean, that's what overtakes your palate. So you allow in that description the chocolate and the marshmallow to take a larger portion of the flavors.
Yeah.
Or even if they said with slight graham cracker, they have to call it out in something like that. Sprinkled with graham cracker in the secondary. That you can write things like that.
Yeah.
You can add that sort of descriptor to make it where basically the judge knows you're not trying to bring a big flavor of graham cracker out. You're just trying to get a little subtle hint of it.
Well, so those of you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to speak out of turn, but so in that instance, is it their fault for not, the entrant's fault for not recognizing that and placing it properly?
They have the option to describe it, and a lot of people don't quite understand the style. There's a lot of people in the homebrewing world that experiment with stuff. And like I said, Sean Cavett out there is one of them. And Cavett makes some really good beers. And several of them are really good. So I don't know. And the fact that, like Bono and I said, the fact that there were multiple s'more beers out there, there's multiple beers that list the same ingredients, and they have totally different flavors, it makes it to where you understand that some of those concepts work, and some of them are better by how they're described. Because had either of the 2 beers that we had been described better, then they would have scored better. The one beer had a chance of going on.
It did. It was really close. And this is where Sean's question about whether or not this is a difficult category comes into question. Because Kyle and I judged this in the mid-30s. 2 other judges might have looked at this and they might have gone, oh, they're trying to make a s'more beer. And they would have tasted it and gone, that tastes like s'mores. And they would have given it a high score. And that is where just the incredible tumultuous nature of the specialty category judge.
Or you would have had the opposite end of that spectrum and the judges across from us, because one of those did not include a base style.
Yeah.
They would have absolutely hated it. They would have ripped it because there was no base style listed. You don't have to list a base style in that. You don't have to.
The second sentence of the style guideline says no beer is ever out of style in this category unless a style is declared. And so that in and of itself says you do not have to declare a style.
And so, yeah, we fought with that with the guys across from us, because I think one in particular, somebody had judged or had entered a black pale ale or an American black ale. And so they didn't know what that was, and they could not wrap their heads around what an American black ale was. Yeah. Bono and I said American black ale.
We explained it to them, and they still
it is a black version of an American pale ale. You know, that's the way you have to judge it. You have to judge it as a pale ale, and a black version of it, basically like a smaller version of a Cascadian dark ale or a black IPA. You know, judge it like that. But they didn't have a guideline that they could read to understand what descriptors are there, and that's what specialty is all about. You don't have a style guideline.
Yeah, specialty is just beer that's not fitting into like one particular category. It doesn't fit into a cubbyhole.
If a specialty beer tastes good, good, and they don't completely blow the description, like if they don't say it's a light American lager and they turn in a stout, if they don't go that far, if they just turn in a good beer under specialty with very little wording, it's probably going to be a 30 because it's a good beer and it'll win points just for being a good beer.
Can you move that?
Now,
we'll see what he said.
The difference between a 35 and a 40, the difference between a 40 and a 45 is pretty distinct. The great beers are great, but the difference between a 35 and a 40 can be the word choice of the entrant,
and that's what we wanted to talk about really tonight, was the semantics. And Cavett brings up a good point. Listing, and this is where more detail can help you. Listing detailed information as to when and how you use the special ingredients could be more beneficial, and that's kind of what Kyle was getting at earlier. And I think that's a very good point. Telling them when you use them, so rather than saying you're going to taste this, you're just saying I used this at this particular point.
Yeah, and you don't have to. I would avoid trying to go like with the feelings you're trying to induce from something. I use this to try to get some of this.
Right.
Don't leave that kind of stuff because it may get scratched out. It may get edited. And that's how some of these are too. Yeah. They get edited by the head judge. So if the head judge is actually looking at this and they think there's some things that people can describe and know who the person is, like if you talk a lot on the forums, on our message board, or anything that goes on about those kind of styles, and people feel like, oh, okay, well, this guy said exactly what he's going to do, and then he wrote the words exactly like that, then they may end up eliminating some of those words. They'll redact it.
Come back to bite you in the butt.
They'll just redact it. They're not going to get rid of it all, but they'll get rid of some of the information, and some of that may be necessary. We had some redacted, not this year, but last year, that we felt like we couldn't even judge it. And we could see through, because they actually redacted it with a permanent marker, we could see through some of that information would have been very, very valuable for judging that beer. But we had to judge it based on what the head judge told us we could, and based on what they opted to give us as information. And that's how we had to judge it. Afterwards, Bono and I were talking, we said we could have given it more points, but, we did, they wrote, basically, one beer listed their ingredients on there. We couldn't figure out what a certain flavor came from, so we had to knock it some points. Yeah. But they told what the flavor was, but the head judge nixed that because they did. They were like 4 ounces of this, 8 ounces of this, 6 pounds of this. They were listing every ingredient, which you can't do that. But you can go through and you can say, we introduced chocolate into the secondary, we had marshmallows in the boil, and graham cracker in the primary. You can say that.
So you want to give them the title.
To make a s'more beer.
You want to give them the title, but you want to let them write the story.
Yeah. I like that idea.
Yeah, that's
a really good way to put it.
You're giving them a title in the table of contents.
All right, so here, before the show, Faulkner brought up a really neat question to ask us, and I think he should talk about this first. Faulkner, what was your first beer?
Dude.
What was the first beer you ever drank? Not like sipping somebody else's, the first beer that you said, this is mine and I'm going to drink it, love it or not.
I think it was... This is going to sound very weak because
they're all weak, dude. They were our first beers.
Right.
Oh, man.
We weren't starting off with Bernardus.
I think I was around 20 years old.
All right.
And
had a Koningshoven quadruple?
Yes. Well, me and a couple of buddies had a plan to go out camping because our friend was in town from the Army on leave.
All right.
And that didn't happen. So the next place we went, what we could think of that was close was Adventure World.
Oh, we went camping at Adventure Worlds many times.
So we
hang out with all the homeless people.
Adventure World is a local park by our old middle school.
Yeah.
It is very cheesy. Don't mistake it.
We used to shoot water balloons from slingshots at the people in the park from the woods and the area around it.
So we posted up out there, and it was
just so happened there was a homeless guy with beer.
Well, no, we got inebriated.
So I got in the van.
Well, we get out and we go out to urinate on the playground equipment. Of course.
So your first beer was a roofie colada.
Yes, it was. Sure. Well, I mean, it's the first beer, man. It's not like I've been tempered.
Yeah, it's his first beer, not his first mixed drink. It was a roofie light.
Ends up. It's not a crazy night. It's just a very unfortunate night. It storms like the Dickens. Our tent almost gets blown over with us in it, and it was a really not fun experience if you're doing it by fun. But, so that was my first...
Did you know that park closes at 8, sir?
Don't you tell the cop while we're urinating off the slide, and we don't see him with his lights off, and we scatter like cockroaches, because we didn't see him.
Ladies and gentlemen, be sure to tune in the next few weeks to hear about Kyle and Bono's first beers.
Oh, what a tease.
That is the tease. That's how we're going to get them to watch next time. So we've given them no other reason.
Yeah, that was such a great story. So much seeds to be planted.
Kyle, what did we learn tonight?
I like cider beer.
That's lame. Faulkner, what did you learn tonight?
Kiwis can brew fruity beer that oddly has probably kiwi in it.
You know...
What did you learn, Bono?
Yeah, Bono. Lantern?
I learned that I
Easy for
pour
you to
a
say.
mean-ass black velvet.
Ooh.
And I also learned that Howard Dean loves New Zealand beer.
There you go.
We're not gonna have that. We're not gonna play us
already
out.
up.
We're not gonna use that to play us out.
Usefulness.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always for tuning in, and please keep in mind that we are not professionals.
So please try this at home.
There's one thing I've said, though I'm not known to be wise. When I hear someone crying out, lamenting, I just look them straight in the eyes and say,
oh God, that is awful.
oh, you're not the only one who ever came up from nothing, Lord, and you're not